Hey, this is Dennis from the Functioning Drunks podcast, and you're listening to Color Me Dead. Now, I thought this podcast was about coloring books. Jesus.
Because it's like watching a train wreck.
Right? Mm-hmm. This is just spiraling out of control.
What kind of fucked up shit are they going to say? We don't know. The only thing that we write down is the case itself. Anything else that falls out, there's a few times where one of us will say something and the other person's like,
oh shit.
You just went dark web with that. Could you fucking not?
But so you know that's the kind of stuff that gets us on the watch list.
Well, I'm sure.
We're there. We're there. We've been there with all of the searches. Like, I've looked up the effects, like the long-term effects of chloroform. Yeah. And I'm sure that's one of them. And I have to clear my search history sometimes because, I don't want my husband to be like, how many times has she smoked me with that? I'm like, no, it's for a case.
It's for a case, I promise. Now go sniff your pillow. Yeah, well, yesterday I was doing research for a future case, and I was finally like, all right, I'm done with this. I need a break. So then I was like, oh, what's a good break from that fucked up thing? Let's talk about
this fucked up thing
that we're going to be recording right now. It's sad when this was a break for me.
I know, and I've done that too. And it was kind of like I walked away from something because I was like, ugh, that was rough. What can I do? Let's go watch a horror movie where people are being fucking stabbed and murdered. Great.
Yeah, we're pretty fucked up.
But then,
we're on episode 13. 13?
So we decided to do what I like to call the Teen Lesbian Hit Squad. Mm-hmm. And this is the end of Innocence, the Shanda Scherer case, who...
If you don't know about this case, it's pretty fucking interesting, and it's deep because you got kids killing kids all over like a lesbian love triangle.
Yeah, and they're young.
Yeah.
They're young. Shanda Scherer was actually only 12 years old when she was lured away from her home, January 11th, 1992 in Madison, Indiana. She was leaving the house under the guise that she was going to meet a friend who was actually a girlfriend that she'd been like having a relationship with. Mm-hmm. And her name was Amanda Heverin. This was not at all what was happening. Shit got real, and she died. And she got moited.
And it was like a long...
It was like a torture kill type of a thing. And it was over the course of several hours. Like four or 5 hours.
Yeah, with a bunch of women that
not even women,
kill together.
Fucking teenage girls. Because Shanda was 12. I think the oldest one out of this little hit squad was 16. So, Jesus Christ.
And,
listen, if there are fathers listening to this podcast, love your daughters. Treat them right so Please. They don't turn into little psychopaths.
Please. Because Shanda, from all accounts that we know, I mean, there's not much background on her because she was 12.
Right. I mean, you can watch... Her mom was actually on an episode of Dr. Phil.
Yes.
Not that long ago. And so she would go on to talk about, like, what a pretty little girl she was and how she liked to primp and preen and she was a happy-go-lucky kid.
Yeah, and she was athletic. She was in a few different sports and different things like that, too. And, she had good grades and she was definitely a little bit of a daddy's girl.
Oh, big time. Mm-hmm. And that's... They would actually refer to her many times throughout like the media frenzy and the follow-up stuff with Dr. Phil. She was a perfect kid. Mm-hmm. She didn't get in trouble. She didn't do any of that stuff. And she actually lived with her mom and dad, Stephen and Jackie, and they would actually get divorced and her mom would remarry and they would move from Indiana to Kentucky. She actually attended St. Paul's School where she was doing cheerleading, volleyball, softball teams.
Yeah, super fucking athletic.
Yeah.
She was bouncing around like little ping pong balls.
I got balls to play with. Volleyball, ping pong balls, softballs, all the balls. But, I love kids like that, like young kids that actually have something going on.
I do, too. What I mean? And that's what also makes it extra tragic.
Yeah.
Because this girl could have gone fucking anywhere.
Oh, yeah. She had potential. Her mom actually would divorce a second time, and then they would return to Indiana. And Shanda was actually enrolled at Hazelwood Middle School. Early that year, she transferred to Our Lady of Perpetual Help, which was a Catholic school, and she joined the basketball team.
Yeah, those Catholic schools.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's pretty much what we know about our victim.
Right.
And There's a few different other girls that's involved. Like, we talked about Amanda Haverin for a second. They ended up becoming friends, then a little bit more than friends.
Right.
And then there's the women that actually committed the murder. And the first one is Melinda Loveless. And that's important because Melinda and Amanda Havery were...
They were an item. They were a couple at one point in time.
Yes, and then they actually split up. And I think it was on, like, more of Melinda's choosing. They broke up, and then when Amanda moved on and started getting with Shanda, then she was like, yeah, I don't want you, but nobody else can have you.
Right. And I think it was that typical teenage jealousy thing that young girls experience, but this one went into fucking orbit.
Could you not?
I know.
Why can't you just go paint your fingernails and, you know...
You're fucking 15. Calm the fuck down. Life is not over.
Exactly. It's not the end for you.
You will find there are other fish in the sea. Trust me. But Melinda was actually born in 1975. She was the youngest of 3 daughters. And unfortunately, her dad was described as a complete pervert.
Her dad was such a piece of shit.
Oh, he was a little off. He would actually steal his wife and his daughter's underwear and their makeup and cross-dress. But he was like completely incapable of being monogamous. He was constantly cheating, and it was openly known in the family.
Well, and he would also want his wife to sleep with
like
people.
have orgies and shit.
And I was watching and I read a thing that talked about her dad would actually like walk out when people were over at the house, walk out and sniff his fucking kid's underwear in front of everybody. What do you do if you see some guy walk out with his daughter's underwear and he's like... You kill it. That's what you do. You stab it immediately. Ah, it's bad.
I would go get a fucking rope. Here, you do it or I'll do it, but you don't get to leave this room until you hang.
Mommy, make the bad man go away.
Well, because his wife, her name was, we'll call her Madge. She actually attempted suicide due to his philanderings and all of his abuse towards her to get her to participate in these awful orgies and weird shit that he was doing.
Yeah, and there was the one thing that was talking about some guy hit on her, or she was talking to some other guy, and he like came up and choke her out. And it doesn't make any sense because you're the same guy that's trying to pimp your wife out to all these other people. Why would you do that? Obviously, he's fucked in the brain.
Yeah, so and Melinda Loveless is watching this all go down as she grows up. What a fun thing to watch, because he would actually take his wife into bars and then try to bring people home to where Melinda and her sisters are sleeping and like do things, but he would pretend that his wife was his girlfriend in the bar.
That's so weird.
So anyway, there were quite a few problems with this family, including the infidelity. There was unemployment due to like racism and like brutality.
Oh, you mean the panty sniffers also racist?
No.
Sorry.
Oh, Jesus. So one of the big one that stuck out to me as I was doing some of this research, I was like rage shaking as I was writing some of this shit down. But when Melinda was 9 years old, Larry had Marjorie gang raped after she like tried to drown herself. That was her punishment for trying to kill herself because her husband was such a inhumane piece of shit.
You want to kill yourself? Well, now we're going to do a gangbang on 5. Break.
Ready, break. Could you not?
Please, just kill yourself.
And so after that incident, the mom like refused to have any kind of relations with him, which, go figure.
She needs a bottle of chloroform.
And something hot and something sharp.
And she needs to try to do some kinky sex and then make him pass out, and then she needs to stabby. Maybe you pull
could
a Jodi Arias.
Yeah, just go rogue. Get 27 or 28 of them in there, because anytime she refused the sex, he would then rape her. And it's like it happened in front of the kids.
Well, that's
and
nice.
So there was a couple of times that he would beat his wife in front of the kids. She was hospitalized. So, I mean, it was really just like a lot of intense drama. When the family, so more drama for Melinda Loveless. For 2 years in the beginning, when she was about 5, the family was really deeply involved with this Baptist church.
Oh, good. You got panty sniffing, racist, religious,
weird,
rapist, nutbag. Weird.
Who knew?
Scrap it. Is it too late for an abortion for this guy?
Well, does age 40, is that too long?
I think I don't want to call it murder anymore. I'm thinking just like super late term abortion.
Yeah, no.
It's fine.
Late term abortion, we had to.
Yeah, when it's bullshit people like this, I think it's totally fine.
So they go in and they give a full confession about their weird, fucked up comings and goings. And so they like renounce drinking and swinging while they were members of the church and all this other crazy shit. And then Larry, Melinda's father, had his wife taken by force by some of the members of this Baptist church to a hotel room to do a forced exorcism.
Oh, yeah, those always end well.
Yeah. So eventually shit just went really, really bad. The family ended up splitting.
Oh, yeah, because Larry also became like a fucking preacher.
Yeah. So
that's the last person I want preaching to me. Just saying. And you know what? He was a marriage counselor as well. So what you have to do is you have to establish dominance. You need to sniff panties and you need a gang rape. That's the best.
Establish dominance.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the best way to a happy marriage: sniffing panties and gang rape.
But listen, it's got to be your own kid's underwear, or else it's a sin. What the fuck? So eventually, Larry returned to his old ways. And it ended up in divorce. In '90, he was actually caught spying on Melinda and her little friend. And I guess his wife had finally just had enough and like grabbed a knife and fucking went after him. Sent him to the hospital. And then she tried to commit suicide again. And then her daughters called the authorities. Larry filed for divorce and moved away to Florida. Melinda was totally crushed, and I'm not 100% sure why. Maybe it's just because, like, even though your dad is a fucked up individual, you still love him because he's your dad. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of this turmoil is what led her to her actions later on.
Well, and not only that, there was reports that would say that he not only raped the mom, but he also raped the daughters and nieces. And Melinda never says anything like that he necessarily raped her, but I'm sure... I'm sure. Because then he got fired from being a preacher because he had raped the one chick, and then he's like, all right, fine, then I'm going back to drinking and swinging and...
Like, if I can't rape this congregation into submission...
if I can't establish dominance here...
I'm going to do it out there.
I'm going to go drink myself silly.
But it's because it was said that he actually was like inappropriately touching himself while he was spying on Melinda and her little friend.
Of course he was.
And that's when Madge flew into her fucking crazy mama bear rage. Fucking finally.
Finally?
Yeah.
Oh, that song is now ruined for me now, though. Like, when I think about you, I touch myself.
Oh, stop it.
I'm going to ruin just every song for everybody from now on.
I know. I really loved that song, too. I love the Divinals. And now it's you kid fiddler, you broke it.
Now you're just going to think about Larry.
Ugh, gross. Sure.
But,
oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, she had a kind of fucked up childhood. Definitely. Does it really give her an excuse for what she did? No. But she's also a teenager. Like, she's not smart.
Well, and fuck. Professionals. That's the word I was looking for. Like, medical professionals will actually say that the brain isn't even fully developed until you're in, like, your mid-20s, to where you're making rational decisions and your thoughts are actually collected before you make action.
25.
I think it's 25.
Which is sad.
And so...
I've only been smart for, like, 2 years.
Oh, man. So for, like, teenagers that have these, fucked up childhoods, is it an excuse? No. Is it a reason?
I mean, you can kind of see it. If that's the way her dad deals with shit,
then who knows?
Because her dad was jealous, fucking threatening to choke a bitch out for talking to some dude, even though on the other side of it, he's like, I want you to fuck all the dudes and let me watch.
Yeah, and he's out there slipping hot dick to anything that'll hold still long enough, including like a bowl of soup. So it kind of goes like this. I think this is why Melinda Lovelace was such good friends with the next girl we're going to talk about, Lori Tackett.
Yes.
Mary Lorraine Tackett, who goes by Lori, also had quite a fucked up childhood as well.
Very much so. Her mother was a fundamentalist Pentecostal Christian, again, with the weird hardcore religions.
I know.
And her father was a factory worker that had 2 felony convictions, like, back in the 60s. And Tackett claimed that she was molested at least twice as a child between ages like 5 and 12. Like, started around 5 and ended around 12. In May 1989, so that's just a couple years before the murder actually takes place, her mother discovered that Tackett was changing into jeans at school because she didn't like what
her mom was dressing her in. So I'm sure skirts and dresses.
And what does mom do? Oh, how dare you try to change into jeans? Let me attempt to strangle you.
This...
Okay.
What?
What? I mean, my child changes his clothes at least 500 times a day, and there's times where I'm like, could you fucking not?
Oh, honey, I think just in the short time I've been here today, he's asked me to change his shirt twice, so...
But I'm not gonna strangle him for it.
And I think it's one of those things where her mom was probably a really hardcore... Sorry, I hope you can't smell my breath from way over here.
I can't.
Because I have gross breath. Chinese food. Anyway... I caught a whiff of my own mouth and I was like, I need to go brush my teeth and get a goddamn mint.
Smells like somebody shit in my pie hole.
We need to find that cat. Whatever cat shit in my mouth has to go outside. Anyway, I think her mom was probably one of those really hardcore religious ladies that thought that, you know, girls should be girls and jeans were the devil and...
The devil wears jeans.
The devil in blue jeans.
After this, didn't child services?
Yeah, child services became involved and they pretty much agreed to like unannounced visits from the social services place until they could determine that there wasn't like a consistent amount of abuse taking place in the home. So... Of course, Lori and her mom now periodically come into conflict with one another. She found out that the mom actually found out that she went to another girl's house that we're going to talk about here in a second, and they were playing with a Ouija board, and that the other girl's dad had bought them this tool of the devil, and they were summoning the spirits of the devil in blue jeans.
I mean, it's late 80s, early 90s. I think like a Ouija board was, everybody was fondling with one.
I know, we made our own. Like, we didn't even have to go buy one. We were piddling with them as kids, too.
Yeah, I know. I definitely did not. I looked at that and I was like, yeah, I'm good.
So, but then she didn't just, like, go pick Lori up and take her home. She demanded that the fucking board be burned and that their house needed to be exorcised and that she was no longer allowed to go over there because she was engaging in satanic rituals.
And not like a push-up exercise, like we're going to sprinkle holy water and...
No, like full exorcism of the house. So
I'm so fascinated with these type of religious people. I just want you to talk to me so then later I can talk shit about you later.
Right? Or you know what? There's been a couple of times that I've been that innocent bystander. I almost said stybander.
Yeah, I was like, where are we going with this?
Innocent bystander in like a public situation where I've like listened to a fanatic just lose all fucking sense of reality. I had this lady tell her daughter that she couldn't have scented lotion because that's the equivalent of scenting yourself as a whore type thing.
Oh, baby Jesus.
Oh, yeah. She went off on like this rant and it was just the sweet pea scented lotion at Walmart.
Oh, Jesus.
And she's like, no. See, when little girls start wearing scented lotion, you know that's how the sex and the rape starts and whores wear scented lotion.
Oh, Jesus. I could go off on like a full tangent on how sexuality should not be stifled.
No, and we could totally get into that. Like, we could get into some gangster shit about that topic.
Definitely wearing scented lotion does not make you a whore.
No.
And you shouldn't put that on a child.
No, you know what's the...
You're a piece of shit.
Lori would actually, obviously, once you start doing this kind of shit to a kid, they're gonna get increasingly worse with their, like, rebellion. And the teenage rebellion is rough anyway, but you start trying to put your thumb down on them.
You swing the pendulum too far one way, it's eventually gonna come back, because she started getting into, like, the occult.
Oh, yeah.
And different things like that. She's like, fuck you and your religion. I'm gonna worship Satan now.
Yeah, she was like, yeah, you fucking pushed her over that invisible toe line in the sand.
I guess, because didn't she, like, pretend to be possessed?
Yes. So Lori then pretended to be Deanna the vampire. And she got very into that, like...
All right, listen, trench coat. Fuck it, I'm gonna need you to not.
Oh, goodness. Because, anyway. And then, of course, like a lot of teenagers do, she started getting into like self-harm. She started doing that a lot when she became involved with a girl who taught her how to self-harm. And I think that the lesbian thing was not necessarily like, I think one of the girls is an actual lesbian.
Right.
I think the rest of them, it was that edgy, cool, how can I upset my parents further?
Oh, exactly. Well, and you also get into the thing that sometimes, especially as a young teenager, because these girls aren't even 16 yet, especially by this point.
No.
It's also, sometimes they confuse friendship, like that love that you can have for a friend versus like, I want to eat your pussy out. Because I love you, but no.
I'm not going to...
There's that line in the
I'm not going to tongue hole your freaking little dude in your canoe. Sorry.
No, vaginas actually terrify me. So...
Oh my God! But no, I think that, even when I was younger, I had a best friend that, we were thick as thieves. We did everything together. And we, even my own family was like, do you still like boys?
Oh, I had that too.
And I was like...
Me and my best friend, when we were teenagers, my mom was like,
Are you guys scissoring? Are you...
You know the friendship's good if everybody questions your sexuality.
Right. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you think is going on. Like, we're just friends.
How should we act?
I know. I don't know. Do you realize that we go hunt for dick together as a team?
We're dick hunters?
We're cock smokers.
We wait out in the bushes until the proper one arrives.
Hey, does this scented lotion make me...
Does this sweet pea turn you on?
Oh my God.
Let me wrap my vagina around your face like a face hugger.
Oh my God. So anyway, sorry.
Who let us have a microphone today?
I don't know.
Not the day for the microphone.
I know.
Sorry.
Lori's parents actually divorced. Oh no, excuse me, not divorced. Her parents actually discovered that whole self-mutilation thing, and they checked her into a hospital March 19th, 1991, where she was put on antidepressants, and then they booted her out a couple days later.
Exactly.
After the treatment, she then 2 days later would deeply cut her wrists and was returned to the hospital. And after they treated the wound, she was then admitted into the psychiatric ward where she was diagnosed with the split, etc.
Oh, the personality disorder?
Because they said it was borderline personality disorder, but it's got a new...
The dissociative identity disorder.
Yes, the DID. Okay, yes. That's what I was looking for. The DID.
She's got the DID.
She's got fucking something.
And wasn't she with Tony Lawrence at this time? That was her girlfriend.
Yes, and that's another girl that we're actually going to discuss. And Hope Rippey is another girl we're going to discuss. And she was the one with the Ouija board that caused the mom to freak out and show up to the house with a Bible.
I must exorcise the demons.
All them demons.
This house is clear.
Oh my God. So she was actually then discharged out of the psychiatric ward, but she had also admitted while she was in there that she had hallucinations and shit since she was a child. And so I think that they were
weird when your mom's been beating the Bible into you, saying that everything...
strangling you over pants.
The devil wears jeans.
You know what I mean? So I think her borderline personality disorder was a lot heavier than they ever realized. She was discharged April 12th. She then dropped out of high school that same September in 1991. She would then stay in Louisville, live with various friends. That's where she met Melinda Loveless. And I think she was just kind of couch surfing at this time because she'd...
So weird.
What do you mean?
So young.
Yeah, no.
To just be chilling.
I had a friend like that whose mom was just so bizarre that she couch surfed till she was 19.
Oh, it's just so sad to me.
But it was kind of this weird, chaotic, perfect storm that led her to Melinda Loveless, who also had this terrifying, shitty
They're we both had shitty childhoods. Let's be BFFs.
Oh, we need to cut our fingers and rub our blood together, and then we can share vampire possession.
Ouch.
Elliot. Okay, you didn't see it, but we just held our fingers up and touched the tips. Just the tips.
Just the tips.
Just to see how it felt.
We love playing just the tip.
All right.
Okay. So, but in December, after Melinda and Lori became friends in November, so now it's December of 91, Tackett moved back to Madison on the promise that her father would buy her a car. And she still spent most of her time between Albany and Louisville, right?
Yeah.
And by the end of December, Melinda and Lori were
thick as thieves, dude. They were connected at the hip.
Exactly.
So Hope Rippey and Tony Lawrence were friends with Lori prior, and they met Melinda through Lori.
Right.
And they were just kind of like, Hope was born in Madison in 76. Her father was an engineer. Parents divorced in 84, and she moved with her mom and her siblings to Michigan for a few years. She claimed that with her family in Michigan was somewhat turbulent.
I mean, it's also a teenager. They think telling you that you need to go to bed is like the worst thing.
Oh,
ever.
I know.
So
her parents resumed their relationship and they went back to Indiana in 87. She was then reunited with her friends Lori and Tony, and she'd known them since childhood. So she was really excited for that, even though her parents said that Lori Tackett was a horrible influence. Like, they didn't really enjoy.
I'll buy you the Ouija board, but that bitch is dangerous.
But
okay.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they weren't wrong, but
right.
Come on, don't be pointing your finger if your hands are a little dirty themselves.
No shit. Oh, fuck, Kettle. Hello, Kettle. This is Pot. You're black. Fuck, man. So they actually got back together. She was really excited. She got back with her old friends. And like with the other girls, she then started to get into a little bit of self-harm too. Mm-hmm. So I think it was just that weird 90s. And it was. Like, I saw it with my own eyes. Now, I'm not saying that every kid that engages in lesbianism is not a lesbian. Lots of them are.
Right.
I'm not saying every kid that engages in self-harm doesn't need psychiatric or professional help. Some of them do. But some of them just jumped on this little bandwagon.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they were listening to a lot of Cure, fucking dyeing their hair black.
They were watching a lot of movies.
Yeah, dude. So
I don't know. In 91, I was just learning how to walk. I was still shitting in my pants.
See, and I was these girls' age.
Yeah.
And I actually knew about this case and the details of it when I was quite young because my mom had read a true crime book about it. And when she was done, she was like, here, you want to read this? Thanks, Mom. This is where it all starts. So Tony Lawrence was also born in Madison in 76. Her father was a Boilermaker. She was really close friends with Hope Rippey, who we just talked about. She was abused by a relative at the age of 9, and she was raped by a teenage boy at 14. And although the police were only able to issue an order to keep the boy away from her, nothing else really happened.
Oh, that's always nice.
Yeah. It's kind of, I'm glad that they take that shit a lot more serious now.
I am too. Even though, what's his face? Richie white boy that raped the one girl, and they're like, well, we can't put him in jail because it's going to damper his future. Fuck him and his future. He needs to be in jail getting his butthole raped every single day.
Yep.
I don't give a shit.
Yep. I'm just going to sit here and make big nods because, yep.
I'm glad that they take it more seriously now versus back then, but I wish that they would start taking rape, especially like serial rapists, a lot more seriously because they only progress from there. And so if you have somebody that thinks that it's okay to rape somebody, especially in a violent manner, they should just be put away. Just lock them away.
You know what?
Or throw them off a cliff. I don't care.
Just put them all on a little island. Just all of them. All the little rapists, all the little kid-fiddling molesters, and only put a limited amount of food on the island. Mm-hmm. May the odds ever be in your favor.
And anytime, have a boat.
Oh,
circling
yeah.
Every once in a while, so anytime they try to build something to try to get off the island, you just
it's like the fucking Coast Guard, and we're over there just breaking their shit.
Snipes.
Yeah.
We're sniping them.
Anyways, so Tony would go into counseling. She didn't really follow through. She actually started... this makes me really sad. She became really promiscuous at the age of 14. And she was sleeping with a lot of people that she had no idea. Met him at the skate park and was like, you want to go bang? Mm-hmm. Because she didn't know how to properly deal with herself, and when you've got hormones and everything else, and
sadly there's a lot of cases where I've read where somebody has been raped at a young age
or molested,
and then they just they don't rape anybody else, but they think that their only value is through sex.
Right.
Which is really sad.
It is. She would actually get into the self-harm thing too, and she attempted suicide in 8th grade, and she obviously was unsuccessful. And, while I want you guys to understand the history on these girls before we get into the dirty of this case, I'm not condoning any kind of violence.
No.
Because you had a traumatic childhood. Everybody, ask anybody. We've talked about this. Somebody has something in their childhood. And granted, some people's are fucking heavier than others.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't give you the right to become a complete fucking lunatic and kill people.
Yeah, if I could go back to little Melinda Loveless, you know, the best way to get over a bad relationship is to get under a new one.
Right.
Just move on. Fuck her best friend. Like, do something. Don't fucking kill people.
Right. Well, and I think what really bothers me because I understand how Shanda got involved with Amanda, who we will talk about here in a second. And I didn't really dig deep into Amanda's stuff because she played very little
role
in the grand scheme of things.
I do know that I remember when I was watching an interview and she was talking, I was like, I fucking hate it. When I was watching the Dr. Phil, I got so frustrated that I didn't even care to look into her history. I was actually more curious about Melinda because of her turnaround, which we'll talk about that later, and some of the other girls. But like Amanda Heverin just bugged the ever-loving fuck out of me. Yeah, when she was all, it ruined my life. I got kicked off the basketball team. I was like, fuck you. I don't give it. Oh, I was like screaming like they could hear me.
I was in my room folding clothes as I was watching that Dr. Phil interview. I grabbed my dresser and shook, and then my TV started getting wobbly, and you know that I just barely bought that for myself last year. And I was like, no,
wait,
oh God.
I'm sorry,
All right.
sorry.
Okay. Hands in the air. Don't touch anything while you finish watching this. And I kept telling everybody, stay away from me. I might reach out and slap the shit out of you because I'm angry at her.
Yeah, I had to go and rage workout after that. I was like, all right, I was going to put off this workout, but I'm going to do it now because now I'm like Eminem and my palms are sweaty.
Fucking knees weak, mom's spaghetti. Like, trying to talk yourself off the ledge using Eminem, dude. But so let's now that you have a little bit of a history on the girls, Melinda Loveless and Amanda Heverin became involved when Melinda was only 14 in 1990. And just as an FYI, Amanda Heverin was very much masculine, very, very butch.
Oh, yes.
Lesbian.
And she basically knew from like... get-go.
Oh, yeah. So they began dating in 1990. So after Melinda's dad bounced, her mom remarried, and Melinda just started acting really erratic. She got into fights at school. She admitted that she was very depressed. And then she got a little bit of counseling, but it didn't really stick.
No.
And then she would go on to disclose her lesbian orientation to her mom.
In 91. So the next year, March.
Yeah.
Right.
And her mom was like fucking furious. I don't understand this.
I don't either. Just
like if your kids, like even if it's just a phase, because I loved when parents would be like, it's just a phase. So let it be a fucking phase.
Yeah. Don't try to coat yourself just because you have this preconceived notion of how your children
are supposed to be.
Yeah. And I get that. Like there's times any parent when you're looking at your child and you're like, oh, maybe one day they're going to grow up and do this and do that. And you put yourself in this fantasy. But those are separate lives.
Right.
So if your kid comes to you and they're like, hey, this is what it is, don't be a fucking twat.
Just be like,
just support them.
Okay. Be safe when you're doing whatever you're doing.
Exactly. And be supportive because that's what they need because the world is fucking awful and cruel. The last place that they should get that is at home. So if your child comes to you and is brave enough to be open with you, don't be a fucking cunt bag. Just be like, I love you and I will support you. And then go do whatever you need to do on your side by yourself because you're a piece of shit.
If you need to go have a 5-minute funeral because your kid comes to you and says, hey, I think I might be gay. I mean, there are so many worse things. Your kid could come to you and say, hey, I think I might be a fucking serial killer.
Which she became one. So, fucking, which one would you rather chose, Mrs. Loveless?
Look what you did.
Look at it.
Because...
Rub your nose in this.
I know, fucking spank her and put her in the corner. So after she eventually accepted it, Amanda and Melinda would continue on with their relationship, but it deteriorated pretty quickly.
Yes. So then Amanda and Shanda Scherer met early in the fall semester at that Hazelwood Junior High when they got into a fight and then they both went into detention.
A children's detention facility.
And then they're like, yeah, I fucking hate you, but I kind of like you. Let's be friends.
Yeah. And I think it was... I'm not exactly sure how the fight started because it was never mentioned.
So I don't...
maybe it had something to do with basketball or one of the sports things or...
Maybe.
I have no idea.
But it went from hating each other basically
to now like
we're going to exchange love letters. There's all this kind of stuff. And Lovelace immediately got super jealous
Oh, yeah.
of their relationship. She was
Rage
like,
fit.
This is not okay with me.
Right.
And although Amanda and Melinda had never formally ended their relationship, Lovelace started dating somebody else.
Like an older girl at the high school.
So she had already moved on. So it was definitely more of that control thing of like, I may not want you, but I don't want you.
Yeah, I can be happy, but you're not allowed.
Which I'm just like, bitches, you guys are all so young.
Oh
like,
my God.
You think life is hard now.
Your life has only just begun to fuck you.
Just the tip.
Wait until you're in your 30s and your goddamn hot water heater goes out. Then you'll know true pain.
Then you'll know a struggle.
Or when your fucking dryer's heating element goes out on a Sunday and you can't get one and you've got clothes sitting there like everybody's standing there half nude in your house just like, we gotta go to school tomorrow.
And, you know, the older you get, the more complicated relationships.
Right.
Relationships get fucked.
Relationships.
Yes.
Because that's basically what they are until you meet
All the shits.
all damn shits.
All damn shits.
So then Shanda and Amanda would actually go to like this like fall festival thingy
Oh, right.
at
Yeah.
the school in late October. And Melinda Lovelace was there and she was like openly discussing like killing Shanda and how upset she was. And she actually confronted the two of them there.
Yes. And which, I mean, it's kind of hard to take. I understand why it was kind of taken seriously, but kind of not. Like, you get a teenager that's like, I'm gonna kill you, bitch. It's 1991 and I'm upset.
You bitch.
You bitch.
But it's true. Mm-hmm. Like, how many times, like, in the course of your career and as a student in high school, were you like, oh, I'm gonna kill her?
I say that, like, at least 10 times a day still to this, to now.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
I look at something, I'm like, kills it. Precious.
Kills it.
Yeah.
But you don't act on those things.
No.
So, and I don't think that people take that kind of thing seriously, but they damn well should have.
Yeah.
But because it was after Shanda was confronted and, you know, Melinda was like making threats and everything, Shanda's parents actually got really concerned about her relationship with Amanda. There were some things that were taking place where they didn't want her to have anything to do with Amanda anymore.
Right. Well, and I think during that festival that night, that dance or whatever, didn't Melinda get all crazy pants and Amanda actually told Shanda,
Run away.
Go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, Amanda put herself in between the two of them and was like, flee, bitch, before she gets hands on you. So it turned into a pretty serious situation.
Yeah.
And there were also, like, Shanda's mom and dad didn't want her to have anything to do with Amanda anymore because of some things that were happening that indicated her daughter was having an inappropriate relationship at the age of 12.
Exactly. Well, and wasn't Amanda and Shanda, they're like not far off in age.
No, they were only a couple years difference.
You know, which is weird because later down the line, like even still to this day, like Shanda's mom basically said that, you know, Amanda,
Like, she's a sexual predator and a child molester.
yeah, and it's like,
No.
they were all,
there's
a year's difference. It seemed like it was very
it was
consensual.
Oh, yeah. I think that I don't think it was forced. I just think it was like Amanda may have pursued it. She says that Shanda did, which maybe she did. Maybe she was curious. And then later she told Amanda that she didn't want to continue with the relationship because she wasn't a boy. Mm-hmm. And so maybe she had some conflicting feelings, but they were actually like writing secret love letters back and forth to each other because Shanda's mom and dad transferred her to a different school.
Right.
To get her
kind of away
from Amanda.
Well, and we also had Melinda who was sending Amanda those letters further saying how I don't like your guys' relationship. I'm going to kill that bitch.
Right.
That kind of thing. And I think she reported it. I don't remember. I think she said that she shared it back then.
But I think she said she told her dad, but she didn't tell the police or like any kind of school official.
Right. And she didn't really get into it.
No, and
how
she
should have.
I don't think, well, you've got a single dad raising a lesbian daughter who says, my ex-girlfriend's sending threatening letters to kill my new girlfriend. He's like, sure, honey.
Okay.
It's all right.
It's all right. I gotta watch Baywatch now. Thanks.
But I don't, you know.
Yeah, I don't know either. You know, you would think that she should have been saying things like She's sending threatening letters. We got in a fight. I had to make my new girlfriend leave because there was enough fear at that point. But I mean, in the same breath, these are little teenage
They're freaking
kids.
teenagers.
They don't know.
I mean, let's.
If they could have known what was going to happen, maybe.
So they would actually, they being Shanda's parents, would actually talk about some of the reasons that they decided to put her into another school and get her away from Amanda was because she completely changed. She was becoming like withdrawn and depressed, and she was having like body issues where she actually flunked gym. Now, remember, this is like super sports girl.
Yes.
So how the fuck do you flunk gym? Well, she quit dressing. She didn't want to get naked in front of other girls. She didn't want other girls to see her body. So there's like all these different things where, she didn't want to make eye contact with people. Mm-hmm. So those are all signs of a kid that's dealing with, like some pretty deep turmoil.
Yeah, like her mom had found out through that one letter, right? That she was going to send...
Oh, yeah. So,
so excited.
I know.
Woo!
Well, because I know what's coming next.
Yeah.
But Shanda had actually written a letter to Amanda stating that she no longer wanted to have any kind of intimate relationship with her because she wasn't a boy. Seals this letter, drops it in the mailbox, fucking forgot to stamp it. So it got returned to the house, and that's when Shanda's mom found it and opened it.
And that's when she's like, oh, Jesus.
Shit. Yeah.
That brings us to the deep part of this where it's like going to be really hard. I don't know if it's going to get funny at all through this because it's really rough.
It is. And we do a lot of giggling and shit in the beginning, and then sometimes we'll lose our shit here and there when we get into the dirty macabre details.
Yeah, save the humor for your spank bank because it's about to get
it's about to go down.
Yeah, it's not good anymore.
Snot. So the night of January 10th, 1992, Tony, Hope, and Lori got into Lori's car and they drove to Madison to Melinda's new place in New Albany. So like a 45 minute ride. Okay. And they were going to pick everybody up. Now, Hope Hope had met her once before and they got along. And so
Hope and Shanda, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, or Hope and Melinda.
Oh, okay.
And so it was just like that thing where Lori was already friends with Tony and Hope. Mm-hmm. And she was like, we're going to go get my friend Melinda.
Oh, okay.
And they kind of knew of each other, but had never really met. And they were like getting together for a very specific purpose this night. So upon arrival, they borrowed some clothes from Melinda. She showed them a knife and was like brandishing this knife, waving it around, like talking about,
we're going to go scare this bitch before we go to like a concert or whatever sort of function they were going to go to.
Some punk rock show. Punk rock. Fuck. Kids are so dumb. Anyway, not that I don't enjoy punk rock. I'm not shitting on anybody, but
just on them.
Just on these guys. But so she had actually said that they were going to take this knife and go and like scare Shanda with it and hopefully scare her away from Amanda.
Oh, goodness. And something like she just didn't like her just because...
She's a copycat and a girlfriend stealer. Let's go kill her.
Let's get 'em. Oh, goodness. So Tackett let Rippy drive the four girls to Jeffersonville, Indiana, where Shanda had lived.
Right.
And they stopped at McDonald's to ask for directions. Mm-hmm. This was long before,
GPS and Google Maps.
Yeah, which I'm so thankful for.
I would never be able to go anywhere.
Never.
So they
ended up arriving at Shanda's house after they asked for directions. And just before dark, Melinda tells Rippy and Lawrence to go to the door and introduce themselves as friend of Amanda's. Sorry, if you guys can hear that, that's my child.
He's completely rogue.
Exactly.
He's wild.
And so they were like, you should invite Shanda to come with them to see Amanda, who is waiting for them at the witch's castle.
Which was kind of like a ruined stone castle like looking thing in Mistletoe Falls. And it was overlooking the Ohio River, and it was pretty like popular
cool.
like little hangout thing.
So Shanda had said that she couldn't go because her parents were awake, and she told the girls to come back around midnight because she was gonna sneak out. And at first Melinda was pissed because I'm sure she had amped up all that adrenaline.
Oh, yeah. She had a plan.
And then it got shot right in her dick hole.
Right. And so Shanda was like, come back around midnight. It has to be dark. My parents have to be in bed, and then I'll go with you.
Mm-hmm. And so after Melinda was mad, the other two girls talked Melinda down, and they're like, no, we're still gonna, we'll come back later for her. Don't.
Calm down. Let's go to the show. Exactly. So all four of the girls go to this show, and then they go to the punk show, and apparently Hope and Tony got bored. They didn't want to stay there anymore, so they went like next door to this neighboring skate park where they found a couple of dudes, took them back to Lori's car, and banged them.
Oh, that's
which
nice.
goes back into that thing where I was talking about the promiscuity of... Yeah. So following that, they eventually load back up and they head back to Shanda's house. During the ride, Melinda said that she couldn't wait to kill Shanda. However, Melinda also just said that she intended to use the knife to like intimidate and scare and just kind of wave it around.
Uh-huh.
So they arrive shortly after like 12:30 in the morning, and they had Melinda hide under a blanket. The girls went like threw pebbles at the window type of thing. Shanda had already kind of been waiting for them, and they,
Yeah, and Lawrence like refused to go and get her because I think she understood
I think
what Melinda wanted, and so it was Tackett and Rippy that had to go to the door.
Yeah.
To go
and like
get her.
to go and get her because Tony was like, no, I won't.
But Melinda was hiding in the backseat of the car, like under a blanket.
Yeah, with her little poke
stick.
So
Shanda was waiting for the girls to arrive.
Right.
And so when they did, Rippy had told her that Amanda was still at the witch's castle. Shanda was still a little like reluctant.
Well, you're 12 years old. You're sneaking out of your house to go see somebody that your parents are like, no more, with two girls you don't really know.
Yeah. And it's also one of those, I mean, she was still with Amanda to a certain degree, still kind of friends with her, but she was already trying to pull back. There was that letter that never got to her about wanting...
Listen, I can't be your scissor sister anymore.
Right. I love the D.
I got, I'm 12 years old. I feel inappropriate. Based on the things that were in that letter that were discussed during that Dr. Phil episode, I'm almost curious as to whether or not Amanda was telling the whole truth about, Shanda pursuing her first.
Yeah, I don't know. I just smell bullshit when it comes to all these women.
Right.
So I have like biased... Hold on one second. I'm going to go assess this situation of this loud child that you hear. All right. So I fixed that. Put the child for a nap because it's definitely nap time, and I think he knews it.
Well, and you know what? He didn't really even protest like he normally does. No. So
I walked out and I was like, all right, it's time for a nap. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, like, yeah, right.
He's like, I was waiting on you, bitch. Jesus.
Fucking, why do you think I've been hammering my ass up and down this hall?
Trying to get your attention because I know not to touch the door handle.
So, sorry.
Shanda actually ends up, even though at first she was apprehensive, she decides to go with the women, or the girls.
Girls.
Yes, very much girls. She decides to go with them anyways.
So, Hope Rippy actually began questioning Shanda about her relationship with Amanda Heverin, and just to, like, trigger Melinda.
Yeah, because as they were riding or whatever, Melinda was still just chilling, just still hiding out, probably, like
ramping her up.
Yeah.
Poking the bear. Poking the bear.
So she wanted to make Melinda snap, which is why I'm like, Hope, you're kind of a dirty cunt.
Right.
Because if she would have just stayed under the blanket...
Nothing would have happened. But Melinda, who has now been triggered by hearing all of these things about the relationship, she springs into action, comes out of the back seat, holds the knife to Shanda's throat, and starts questioning her further about her relationship.
So then they continue on their location towards Witch's Castle. But by this point, Shanda obviously
knows.
Fucking sobbing.
Oh, yeah. Like, she knows that she has now made
this girl who you're already afraid of from the fight that happened earlier where she had to run away from her.
Right.
She knows that Melinda hates her, and now she has a knife to her throat.
And she's in a car with three other girls.
That she doesn't know.
That she doesn't fucking know. That are all bigger than her. They're all older than her.
Yeah, because they were all like 15, 16. Mm-hmm. So she's just this little 12-year-old, and she knew. She's like,
oh, fuck.
This is fucked.
Yeah, this is the moment where I knew I fucked up. Because it went from having the knife held to her throat and being questioned to then she was being, like, taunted. So Melinda had actually like messing with her hair, playing with her hair. Oh, what pretty hair. Wouldn't it be a shame if I cut it off? And like holding the knife to her hair like she was gonna shear her down.
Like the little psychopathic teenage cunt that she was.
Yes, and like just to frighten her more. And at this point, Melinda began taking off all of her rings. Shanda's, good God Almighty.
Get it out.
I know. Taking off all of Shanda's rings and like dispersing them to the other girls. And at one point in time, Hope had taken Shanda's Mickey Mouse watch, tuned it to like go off, and was dancing around to it.
Oh, fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. But there's also that whole case of when you get enough psychopathic women together, anything can happen.
It's true. Like the pack mentality of...
We just touch butts. They're fucking slaying people.
Yeah, they're kidnapping. Because they also, in the course of their ride to the witch's castle, they have now bound her hands and feet with rope. So this little 12-year-old is having a goddamn come apart as these girls are just torturing her.
And they start...
like mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, because they start talking about how they're going to take her to like this dungeon and it had all these human remains and that she was going to be next. So they're also really feeding off of their whole like occult.
Yes. Because at this point they've now reached the witch's castle and they've drug her out of the car and they've got her in some dark, damp, dank. Remember, January, it's fucking cold outside. And
I wonder if, was it Lori that was the whole possessed by the vampire bitch?
Oh yeah, Deanna the vampire.
I wonder if she came out to play that day.
It kind of sounds like it did.
Psychopath.
Because Lori actually went to the car, retrieved a shirt that had a smiley face on it and lit it on fire and told Shanda, this is what you're going to look like.
Right in my guts.
They immediately put it out because they're afraid that the flames from this shirt that's been lit on fire will attract the attention of another vehicle if anybody sees it. Because remember, they're out in the middle of fucking nowhere and it's after midnight. It's probably 1 o'clock in the morning now and it's a bunch of fucking teenagers
like shit on fire.
Assaulting another kid, you know?
That's nice.
So they decide to put everybody back in the car and get out of Dodge. And at this point, Shanda's like begging, please just take me home. I've learned my lesson. Can you not?
Could you fucking not?
They talked about, I think it was Lori. She won't do much of anything because during the trial, which we'll get into later, she expressed a little remorse, but only that Shanda had been asking to go home to her mom, like, please, I just need my mom. And then she started taunting her.
Yeah. She turned on, it was Lori that turned on like the boombox.
Yeah.
That was sitting on her lap and played opera and was mimicking her.
Yeah.
Acting like she was crying and laughed laughed with her little fucking...
like her devil laugh. Her possessed blue jean wearing devil laugh.
Stab it.
I know. So then Melinda ordered Shanda to slip off her bra and hand it over to Hope, who slid off her own bra and replaced it with Shanda's.
Because
I have no fucking idea.
Teenage women are weird.
I don't know. So they actually became lost as they're driving around this area because they're not actually from there. And so they actually go...
And they're dumb as fuck.
And they're idiots. Spark plugs are not misfiring. Brain cells have obviously been damaged by whatever fucking...
Drowned it.
Late-term abortion. So they get lost and they have to stop at a gas station to get directions, and they actually throw a blanket over Shanda to hide her from anybody else because now she's bound and sobbing and asking for help.
It was Lori that went inside to ask for directions.
Yeah, she called a boy that she knew that could help her like find her way around. And so they actually drove around for several minutes, kind of chatted with each other, never said anything about,
Nothing. Not talking about the crying, sobbing 12-year-old on the back.
Yeah, no, not gonna do that. And they actually stopped and talked to a couple of boys.
Yeah.
As they're cruising around with this poor little girl bound and shit in the car, they stop to chill out. And then they take her back to Madison and they take her into some woods near, it's a spider.
Yeah.
Spider. Little one. There's hundreds of baby spiders in your house.
Could you? Why? Hey, devil, go take a fucking nap. You need to pause this podcast because
You go get in bed with Jameson right now, the both of you.
Satan needs a nap. Fuck.
So they actually drove around, went back to Madison where they actually knew their way around instead
they're,
of like
in the woods towards like Lori Tackett's house.
Yep.
Oh, good. And now,
Okay, kids, brace yourself.
yeah, here we go. Because this is where it gets really sad. Those gory details that we say we don't leave out. There are times when doing research that I'm like, I wish I wouldn't have found this.
Oh, goodness. When I was doing my research for this, there's actually a couple of books that if you would like to look into them, there's one called Cruel Sacrifice, and then I believe the other one is called Little Lost Angel. And that's where I got some of these details because some of the girls that participated in this went into great detail during the trial, and I think it also, Cruel Sacrifice actually shows crime scene photos. Ooh, yeah, it's rough. So Lori Tackett led them down a dark, like, garbage dump road where it was led into, like, a logging area. And so, kind of densely forested on one side and then empty on the other.
And there's a lot of different places that once you get just not even far off of the road into a forest, like, you don't see shit.
No. And it's true. Like, even out here in our high Uintas, if
You can disappear.
Oh, if you get up in those
hurry.
quakies and get quaky sick and you get confused, I've been out there and been like, oh, fuck, Marco! Like, looking for my friends. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, Tony and Hope were afraid by this point.
Right.
And they're like, let's stay in the car, which is sad because it's not even scary yet.
No, not even at all. Melinda and Lori would then attack Shanda, and they stripped her completely naked. And then Melinda actually started beating Shanda up with her fists. And so keep in mind that Shanda is bound, so she can't really defend herself from these blows either.
Right, and like Melinda's taking her and like dropping her fucking face onto her knee. She's like
pummeling her. It wasn't just like a few swats, sissy swats.
And it should also be noted that Shanda was 12 and she had braces. So every time Melinda was bashing her fucking knee against her face, it was cutting open her mouth and making her bleed.
But it goes on from there because then Melinda would then take that knife that she was waving around and attempt to cut Shanda's throat with it.
Yeah, but it was
It was too dull.
And didn't really do much.
Didn't do the kind of damage that Melinda was hoping it would have. So
and then this is where Hope came out of the car to hold down Shanda, which is why I'm like, fuck her.
Yeah.
And when I was watching the interview with her when she was older, I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah. Well, and when she talks about, like, I don't know why I did it. I don't know why I did it. I shouldn't have done it. I didn't want to do it. Well, then you fucking shouldn't have, because Tony didn't.
Yeah.
She stayed her ass in the car. She was like, fuck no, fuck this, fuck you, no.
And this bitch was like, I want to be part of the cool girls.
So was it the pack mentality? Was it fear that she was participating? Was she told to get out of the car? Because that detail I'm a little hazy on. Or did she hop out willingly and be like, yeah, okay, me too?
I have no idea, because I would have stayed in the fucking car with the other bitch who was like, I don't like this.
No, dude,
I'm leaving to go phone a fucking friend.
You know what? It would have been so difficult because that desire to stand up for somebody that's being hurt, but at the same time, they're your friends and one of them's got a fucking knife.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either. But when I see Hope, when she's like talking with Shanda Sheriff's mother, crying and weeping, and she's like, I don't expect you to forgive me. I was like, bitch, I don't forgive you, and it's not even my kid.
Right.
You're lucky, because if it would have been my kid, I would have stabbed you.
Oh, dude, I would have come to the fucking show prepared.
Yeah, because Hope is also the girl who was smiling at her in her picture when she was arrested. So then with her trying to say, like, I didn't really have any involvement and I didn't like any of it. Bullshit. There was a part of you that obviously enjoyed it. Anyways, so Melinda and Lori took turns stabbing now Shanda in the chest. So they attempted to slit her throat. They've punched her. They've broken up her mouth.
The knife was obviously too dull for a cut, but it was clearly pointy enough for a stab.
Yeah, which is sad because it doesn't kill her.
No, that's not it, guys. Because then they took some more of that rope that they used to bind her and they strangled her until she was unconscious and they put her in the trunk of the car. And
they thought she was dead.
Yep.
Because if it's unconscious, that must mean it's dead.
So they throw her in the car. They throw her in the trunk. Now the girls go to Lori Tackett's home nearby. They go inside. They clean up a little bit. They grab a soda. When they realized at one point, Shanda's in the trunk, now conscious, and she's fucking screaming for help and banging on the trunk. So Tackett went out with a paring knife and stabbed her several more times and grabbed the tire iron out of the trunk of the car and then smashed Shanda with it.
And she came back in with all the other girls and she's like fucking...
She's got blood splatter now all over her. So about this time, it's like 2:30 in the morning and Lori's like, oh, let's read our future with runestones and, you know, because more of that occult bullshit. Well, runestones aren't really the occult, but it's not like she knew what the fuck she was doing.
No, she's just fucking psychopath. And so this was around now 2:30 a.m. Lawrence and Rippy decided to stay behind.
Lawrence and Rippy stayed behind, and then Tackett and Lovelace went like country cruising. So they hopped in the car. They left those two girls behind, and they went like driving around. And they went to a nearby town, and they could hear Shanda in the trunk, like gurgling and making noise and shit. And so they stopped the car. They open the trunk, and Shanda sits up, covered with blood. Her eyes are like rolled back in her head. She's mumbling. She can't speak. And Tackett beat her with the tire iron again until she goes silent. And those blows to Shanda's head actually crushed and knocked out a chunk of her fucking skull. So now she's got open...
How she's even still alive.
I'm not 100% sure if she was like... I have no idea. Because she's been thrashed.
Yeah, because didn't she actually... Isn't that the part where she had sat up and had said, Mommy?
Yeah.
Which reminds me back in that Dean Coral case... when Johnny sat up.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
And said, Wayne, please don't. And so this is like that same kind of thing where... Yeah,
she's like, she's fading. You know what I mean? She's got several stab wounds. She's been strangled. She's been physically beaten with fists and knees. She got stabbed some more. She's had her fucking head beat in with a tire iron. And she sits up long enough to say, Mama.
So now they have to come back to the house to clean up again.
Right.
Where are these parents?
You know, I don't know.
You got like a traffic of kids in and out multiple times through the night.
This is at Lori's house too, with her like crazy Pentecostal mom.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I bet that bitch took like the housewife holiday to bed, where she popped an Ambien, had herself a big old fat box of wine, and then just didn't fucking hear him because she was in a coma.
Yeah, I guess.
But
fucking, I don't know.
At one point in time, they go in there, they clean up, and they start like joking about what they had just done with the two that stayed behind.
Yeah, because Hope asked.
Yeah, she's like, what the fuck? So Tony and Hope stayed behind, and now Lori and Melinda are like talking about in malicious detail about what they've done.
And they're like giggling about it, like it's no big deal. It's fine.
So finally, fucking Mother Hen wakes up and is like freaking out that her daughter's finally... It just blows my mind. It's well past 3-something in the morning, and you're just now fucking hearing these kids that have been going in and out of your goddamn house.
Yeah, so she's like, everybody shut the fuck up.
Yeah, like...
Why are you here?
Yeah, it's like you're done. Take your fucking friends home and whatever. So she was like, okay. So she goes out. They get in the car. They drove out to like a burn pile where they opened the trunk. They looked at Shanda, and again, Tony refused. She was like, I'm not gonna fucking look. I'm not gonna do this. And then Hope Rippy actually grabbed Shanda, sprayed Windex in her face, and said, you're not so hot now, are you? Now let's take off her pants and get to it, ladies.
No. Yeah.
So Shanda was then sodomized several times, and like
with the tire iron.
Yeah, vaginally and anally with that tire iron that they used to open her head with.
And then they decide to wrap her up in a blanket, and then they put her back into the trunk.
Right.
This is so drawn out, and it's so over the top, especially like this is a monstrosity if it was an adult. But you're putting that much fucking crazy into a child.
Right. And it, like, was it just that that pack mentality we were talking about was was Melinda trying to impress Lori? Was Lori trying to impress with, I
think they all got lost in their own fucking psycho. I think what they ended up doing is everybody was taking a little bit out of their troubled childhood and gaining that kind of control and taking it out.
Because this is fucking extra.
Yeah. Who's like, yeah, let's take off our pants now and rape her with a tire iron. Like, as if it's not bad
enough.
Enough.
So they wrap wrap up this poor baby girl and they toss her back in the trunk and they go into town to get gasoline.
And they actually filled it with like a Pepsi.
Like a 2-liter fucking bottle full of gasoline.
Okay.
So they all opened the trunk. They kind of giggled and laughed again. Tony, again, is like, fuck you guys. I'm not going to do this.
But Hope's like, hey, I know a place. I know this field. So there's that whole, don't try to say that you weren't part of this.
Right.
Fuck you.
So they go to this field and they drag Shanda's body out of the trunk and they go and they put her in this field, like near a burn pile.
Mm-hmm. And Melinda orders Tony to participate. And she's no, it's not going to. Or that she's not going to, because they're like, pour the gasoline on her. Do fucking something, bitch.
Right.
And she's like, nope.
She
I'm
went and
staying.
she went and got back in the car. Mm-hmm. So they've got Shanda, who's now completely stripped naked. And, well, not naked. She's still got her underwear on. And they pose her and they put her in like what they referred to as a naughty girl pose. Mm-hmm. And they like pulled her underwear aside to where her genitals were showing, put her knees up. She was touching herself, that kind of thing, to make it look really provocative and nasty, I guess. Yeah,
because by this point, they think that she's all the way dead.
Right.
Melinda then tells Hope, she's like, fine, if fucking Tony won't do it, you're gonna do it. Pour the gasoline. And Hope actually does. Mm-hmm. Shanda is then burned. But later they actually found out that Shanda was still alive through all this because they found like smoke in her lungs and in her esophagus.
They found soot and shit in her lungs. So she was still alive.
She lived and then was burned alive.
Right.
On top of
everything else.
Being brutally raped, being posed, fucking having your head fucking bashed in where you're missing parts of your skull.
She was stabbed repeatedly with 2 different knives. She'd been strangled. She'd been physically pummeled to the point
her throat slit. And she still was alive through all of that. Which is just because they could have stopped at any point.
Oh, yeah.
And that's my whole thing, where I'm like, no, obviously you were letting loose some fucking monsters that night.
You fucking, maybe Deanna the vampire did really come out to play, and then everybody else's came too, because you know, at that particular juncture, when you're ordering somebody to dump gasoline and you strike a match and light somebody on fire, you know what you're doing.
Yeah. They could have stopped after beating her fucking face in.
Oh, yeah.
They could have just dumped her off and been done with it. It still would have been horrible.
Right. But it wouldn't have been brutal mutilation and then fucking death of a 12-year-old.
Exactly.
So oh my God, hold on, let me get my shit together. So her burns were from like her bust line up.
That's pretty much where they poured all the gas, right, and the Windex. And
right. And I think it was like a thing where they all, because Shanda was a very, very pretty little girl.
Yes, she was.
Gorgeous kid.
She was.
And I think that Melinda and some of the other girls were very jealous of that.
They definitely wanted to destroy that face.
Yeah, and that's what they were doing. So they pour the gas, they light the match, they drive away. They circle around a few times, and then they were like, well, let's go see if she's all the way dead. And they go back, and they decide that she's not, and they get out, not they, because Tony at this point is like, I want to go home. That was mentioned several times. She was like, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. Yeah. And I think that's why she received less of a sentence, is because they, at that point, had been like holding her against her will. But they returned, and I believe it was Hope Rippey again, went out and dumped the rest of the gasoline on her, and they like left her there to smolder and die.
So after you are done brutally
murdering
and torturing a girl, you gotta eat.
Because it's like 9:30 in the morning, guys. So remember, they picked her up at like 12:30 in the morning.
So that's 9 hours of fucking torture, of not being able to just kill this girl. Which actually reminds me of another case that we're going to cover eventually at some point that's actually like a personal local case for us.
Yes.
Where it took all day, which is just... So after they're done fucking doing all these terrible things to Shanda, they're like, fuck it, let's go to McDonald's.
Yeah, dude, because what we really need is a McMuffin and an orange juice. because nothing washes murder down like the sweet taste of fresh squeezed orange juice. While they're enjoying their McMuffins, one of the girls would then pick up a sausage patty and wave it around and go, "Oh, look, I'm Shanda." And they referred to the burnt side of a sausage patty as
Shanda. And they all giggled. But wait.
well, not they all, because then Tony, horrified, called a friend and was telling them,
"I need to phone a friend.
Yeah.
This is what's fucking happening."
And these are payphones. They've got to find a phone to call for help, because these weren't cell phones we were using at this point.
So Lori then dropped off Tony and Hope at their houses and finally went to her own home with Melinda. They actually Melinda called Amanda and was like, "Guess what? I just killed your girlfriend," and she's taunting her. And apparently Amanda was like, "I don't really know if what you're saying is...
I don't know that I necessarily believe you.
Yeah.
Is this real life?"
They actually arranged to pick up Amanda later to be like, "Fine, I'll
fucking show you. I'll prove it to you."
Exactly.
So Lori and Melinda then drive over to Amanda's house. And, since she was so fucking unconvinced that her girlfriend had just been called during the phone call confession, and she just thought that Melinda was trying to scare her.
Her girlfriend had been called.
What did I just say?
You said her girlfriend had been called, instead of killed.
Sorry.
Her girlfriend had been called. I wonder if I can spin it into some sort of sweet accent.
Oh, man. Amanda is unconvinced that her girlfriend has actually just been killed, and through the phone call confession that was made. And so they show up to the house. They bring her out. They open the trunk.
Oh, yeah. And in the trunk is where there were still bloody handprints.
And her, some of her clothing, her socks and the bra that they had taken off of her.
Yeah, so Amanda is freaked the fuck out.
And the weird thing is Melinda kind of demanded that Amanda kiss her before she left, and was kind of crying at that point. Was like,
Psycho.
please don't tell anybody.
I'm gonna kiss you and I love you.
Yeah.
Please don't tell anybody.
anybody.
So Amanda was like, okay, I won't.
And she fucking didn't.
No, not until after the investigation started.
Oh yeah.
Well, and then she said, well, I didn't want to go to the police because I didn't know if it was true or not, and I didn't want to
I didn't want to get my friend in trouble. Bitch, if you see bloody handprints...
You should probably phone somebody. Anybody.
Even if it was a prank. Even if it was a prank and they did it in an attempt to scare you further.
My next phone call is I would have gone into the house and called Shanda's house. Is Shanda with you? And if they would have said no...
911.
Yeah. The next morning, so January 11th, is when they actually find Shanda's body by a farmer.
Yeah. So Don Foley was actually a farmer, retired military, and he drove by and he saw the body. This is the fucked up shit. He thought it was a sex doll or something. He thought it was like a burned up mannequin, or he referred to it as that kind of doll.
That kind of doll. Which maybe he did, but maybe also given the fact that he ex-military and things like that, he probably saw a burning body once or twice in his life.
Right.
So he's telling himself, I think this must be like a sexual doll.
That is not well, but then keep in mind, she's also nude from the waist down, and she's been posed with her undies pulled aside and everything. So I think it was like one of two things. He looked at it and was like, holy shit, that's a corpse. Or maybe he glanced over and saw parts and was like, naughty. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah.
He goes back and he re-investigates, and when he gets closer, he realizes that's burning flesh and that is in fact a dead body. And he actually, in his interview for that documentary, he was like, seeing that still
fucks with him.
Yeah, still shakes me to my very core. And this is somebody that's seen wartime.
Yeah. Maybe when you're in, and I don't know, I can't speak because I was never in the military, but a lot of people, you can never fully mentally prepare yourself, but you kind of know when you're in war, you're going to see that kind of shit. But when you're back home, where things are supposed to be safe, and all of a sudden you find a burning fucking 12-year-old,
on some country ass logging road in the middle of fucking nowhere as you're trying to enjoy your morning smoke.
Yeah, and wasn't this all around 10, almost 11?
11 o'clock in the morning.
Which is fucking insane when you think the girls were having breakfast at 9:30, so it wasn't long.
No.
When the body was found.
No, not at all. And to my knowledge, the body was still smoldering a little. So Jefferson County, he called the police, and they were, the police showed up, and he's like, we got to go back to the corpse. So Jefferson County Sheriff Buck Shipley and the detectives started their investigation. They were collecting evidence at the scene. Initially, they thought it was a drug deal gone wrong, because they were like, there's no way locals did this.
Because this is way too extreme.
This is fucking extra.
Extra.
So extra.
So they phone a friend.
Right.
Like, hey, FBI, this is what we think that it is. And that's when Candace DeLong was one of the FBI agents, goes on to say that this was the most brutal case she had ever seen.
Right. And she was actually a psych nurse for the FBI before she was like field agent. And she was like, holy shit.
I cannot.
So Stephen Scherer, Shanda's father, excuse me, I'm trying to get situated and I hope I'm not making too much noise.
It's okay.
So father notices that his daughter's gone early the next morning. So they start calling like friends and neighbors and calls his ex-wife and is like, where the fuck is Shanda?
Yeah. And at 11:45, they decide to meet up and they filed a missing person report with the sheriff.
Right. And so this is kind of when they went in and they were all,
My daughter's missing.
My kid's gone. And the sheriff, fuck.
Yeah. And then at 8:20 p.m., Toni Lawrence is now she's crumbled.
Oh, she's fucking hysterical. Riddled with guilt. She's probably completely horrified and traumatized by the fucking prior night's events.
Yeah, so she tells her parents and she's like, I need to go to the sheriff's office like fucking yesterday.
Yeah, right.
And she's rambling at this point to the police. I'm sure she's fucking hysterical.
Like trying to talk
taking a
between
15-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She identified the victim as Shanda and she immediately names off the other girls and she tries to give them a timeline and break down everything and give everything that she knows, basically.
Right.
This is what happened. I give them a...
How did that go again?
So Shipley contacted the Clark County Sheriff and they were able to match the body to Shanda's missing person report. Mm-hmm. And the parents of Toni actually contacted the other parents of the other girls.
Oh yeah, they called the Rippies and they fucking like, don't call us again until we have lawyers present. Click. So, but then wouldn't you be a little bit like perturbed? Wouldn't you want to be like, what the fuck? No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
need more information.
Right. So I think this is my assumption. Speculation that Hope went home and tattled.
Probably.
Because when they...
Well, and when you have your daughter showing up at 9:30 in the morning...
And she's been gone
or like
fucking...
10-ish by that point, you're going to have some questions.
Oh, yeah. And God knows what kind of condition she came home in. You know what I'm saying? Why do you smell like gas and burnt hair? You know what I mean?
What's going on?
What the fuck
Those
were
are
you doing?
not your clothes.
Where's the shit you left in? So, but then to have them pick up the phone and be like, please don't talk to us again until we have lawyers present.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they had to have known. But the detectives got dental records.
Correct.
And at that point, they were able to positively identify Shanda. Which, that fucking phone call or
I just got
showing up to those parents.
The shakes. Like, could you imagine how, like, what a tortured little mangled head you would be fucking with to get her dental records?
And then having to go to the parents and
be like,
walk through everything that happened to their child. Like,
when they're like, right, when they're like, what happened to my kid? And you're like, she's dead. Well, how did she die? Mm-hmm.
You don't. And they actually didn't tell Shanda's parents everything. Like, they told her that she had died and stuff like that, but they didn't know that she was like burned alive.
Right.
For a while.
Yeah. Not until they completed the full autopsy. But they said that your daughter had been murdered.
Yeah. So Melinda and Lori were arrested January 12th. And they got that from Toni's statements. Right.
But the bulk of their reason to arrest or whatever, their probable cause, came from Toni.
Exactly. Sorry.
You're okay. So the prosecution immediately declared, we're fucking trying you as adults.
As they fucking should.
Right.
When you take the severity of everything that happened.
Oh, yeah. And they were just like, yeah, but no, you're fucking adults. Bam.
Exactly.
Here we go. And for several months, prosecutors and defense attorneys didn't release anything about the case. It was only tidbits that the media got, Toni's statement or stuff like that.
Well, and if any time you look at any sort of breaking news that happens with a murder, you have not only a murder of a child, so they have to keep things a little...
Right. Well, you can't...
Because they're minors.
Right.
But not only is the victim a minor, but so are all the suspects.
Kind of like that shit that went down in Denver where the little boy...
Killed the other little girl.
Took the little girl, the little...
or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyways, all four of the girls were tried as adults, and defense would try to be, they have troubled childhoods, let's give them a lesser sentence, all of that kind of shit. And they actually brought up Lori's
like mental illness, her borderline personality, because they were trying to use that as like a mitigating factor to say, oh, they were troubled and she's got mental health issues.
And they try to say Melinda had the same thing.
Yeah, like trying to take away some of the responsibility of what the fuck they had done.
Yeah, and the FBI agent DeLong, in that interview, she was saying that, I don't think any of them would have necessarily done it if it was just them. Like, it was a pack.
I just realized that I also need to start fucking proofreading a little bit, because it's very unlikely for teenage grills to commit crimes like these alone. And it's usually
only the adult grills. It's those big fucking camp chefs you gotta watch out for.
But teenage grills,
you're fine.
Yeah, no.
Those little charcoal grills, you're good.
Oh, God. What the fuck is wrong with me? So, anyway, she was saying that this was likely like a pack mentality,
right,
like we had kind of talked about, that leads them to do things like this. But in her interview, she said that she wasn't 100% sure if it was jealousy. She thinks it was 100% jealousy motivated, but for Hope, she was like, I don't know if that was a fear or was she trying to impress the other girls.
I think that she just realized in that moment that she was also a little psychopath. In my peculation.
My peculation. As you touch your breasts.
As I touch my breasts.
My peculation.
I do that when I get nervous.
Dude, like Nurse Jackie, Dr. Coop, just reach up and grab your own tit.
I am totally Dr. Coop. Like,
fuck.
Probably why I touch buttholes and I grab my own boobs when I'm nervous. I don't know what else.
I rub my neck like this, like I'm petting a cat, but I'm petting myself. It's really weird. God.
Anyways, in exchange for the cooperation, Tony was allowed to plead guilty to 1 count of criminal confinement, right? And she was sentenced to 20 years.
Right.
For her involvement. And Lori and Melinda were sentenced to 60 years in the Indiana Women's Prison in Indianapolis, right? Okay. With maximum time, reduced for good behavior, which I can't with good behavior when it comes to prison, especially when it comes to murder. I don't give a fuck. You're in prison. Most of your rights are stripped away. Your good behavior. Okay, so you didn't push anybody in the line when you were getting your fucking food. Good
right.
for you. That doesn't mean that you're okay enough to be back into the world.
So do you think that because these guys were so young when this all went down, that like they should be given good behavior? I mean, they did this one thing this one time.
No. Because there was that much overkill and that much torture that young. I think that kind of shit going untreated, who knows what could have happened later in life. Like, who knows what Melinda could have done the next time she got jealous.
Well, the reason I ask is because they're coming up on parole in 2020.
I know.
Which is literally like right around the corner.
I know.
Because it's coming up. And guess what? They're probably going to get it.
I know, which I think they should have to spend life in there, because when here's that kind of like double edge, and this is, again, my speculation, my whatever. Women aren't tried as hard for murder as men are.
I know they're not.
If these were 3 or 4 teenage boys that were doing this...
If it was a state that had the death penalty, they probably would have received it.
Oh, yeah. Fucking pisses me off. It should be equal. I don't care if you got a dick or a pussy between your legs. You killed somebody.
I don't care if you sit or stand.
Well, you both
are going to use the stainless steel one now.
Exactly. You're going to be making your booze out of your toilet.
Oh, baby duck wine.
Ugh, gross. Anyway, so Hope was sentenced to 60 years with 10 years suspended for
mitigating circumstances.
Yeah, plus the 10 years of medium, like, supervision, probation.
And on appeals, a judge actually reduced her shit to 35 years. And now, keep in mind, she has actually been paroled.
Yes, she
did not, she got her sentenced, like, way reduced.
Yeah, she was released in, I want to say...
It was the 2000s. I think
one was, like, 2000 and the other one was, like, 2002, 2003.
Something like that.
Maybe.
Because, so...
Melinda tried to appeal, not repeal. Oh, Jesus, every fucking time. Her sentence, but they were like, no, crazy lady, you need to stay.
No, it was denied every time. She, I think she exhausted 4 or 5 appeals before she finally was like, fuck it, I'll just stay here. Both Lovelace and Tackett are currently serving their original sentences, given Indiana's policy of reducing sentences by a day for every day served with good behavior. Both women could be released from prison as soon as 2022.
Yeah, and so she'll be 46 and Lori will be 47. No, that's still too much of your life. You stripped a girl's life away. You fucking tortured her for 9 hours and you burned her alive. I don't give a fuck how good you are. You're a piece of shit. And yeah, come, get out. See what fucking happens.
Do you know what? You know what, though? I think the fun part about having them be released is their lives are going to be so dramatic. It's almost like Shawshank Redemption, where like the one guy gets out and he can't hack it out in the real world because he's so institutionalized. That's kind of where they're going to be.
They grew up in prison.
Yeah, literally.
What kind of life are they going to be able to have with all their freedoms?
And people need to understand, like, they're not going to have high-paying jobs. They are fucking felons. Good luck trying to get any kind of government position. You can't even deliver fucking mail.
Yeah, and a lot of people are probably going to be like me in the sense of, I don't give a fuck how good you are. You're still a goddamn monster and a piece of shit, and I don't want anything to do with you.
We're going to have to do this background check for you to work here. Oh, fuck.
Jesus Christ.
Nope. Hey, I'm going to go lock the door. Lock the door. Get out. Call the police. And then, it's not like they're going to find partners. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of person... I don't know. They probably will, because if Jodi Arias has a fan club, I'm sure somebody.
People are
But like, you would
weird.
think, like, if I met somebody all willy-nilly in a social setting and got really interested in them and they were like, oh, and then by the by, I killed somebody when I was 16.
I was 16 and I was jealous because she was with one of my lovers. So I brutally fucking tortured and killed her.
I'd be like, check, please. Check. You know what? I'll go Dutch.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Fuck, Mayday.
And then I'm running.
Oh, yeah. So,
anyways, Toni Lawrence, who was the one that we know that didn't want
anything to do with this,
Yeah, she was actually released December 14th in 2000. So she only served 9 years.
Okay.
And she remained on parole until 2012. So that's where I got
2002.
That's where I got the 2000 and 2002 in my brain. And then it was April 28th of 2006 is when Hope was released. And she was
paroled from the women's prison after only doing 14 years of her original 35-year sentence.
Yeah, and she remained on the supervised parole for an additional 5 years, which I still don't think is enough time. No, in my opinion.
And so the aftermath of this appalling fucking murder, and you know what? This is why I think these women should still be in prison, less Toni. Because I really think that, like, her 6 years was fair. Given the fact that she was a 15-year-old girl, she didn't want to participate. She actively tried to leave, and she was the first person to be like, yo,
and she never
shit went down.
Shanda.
No, she never touched her. So, but the other three should definitely stay in prison for life. And this is why I think that, because there were additional victims in this. Melinda's father was actually subsequently arrested and convicted of all of his shit.
Yeah, because it all came out during her trial. Because as she was trying to explain her murder away, she threw her dad under the bus, which, he deserved it.
Fucking by all means. So he ended up doing like 5 years only because of the statute of limitation.
Which I think that is also bullshit.
Well, it is what it is. But he actually got tossed under the bus, and he went to jail. He went to prison for 5 years.
Yeah.
Now, this is the one that turns my guts, because when I say that we have additional victims, we really do. Shanda Sher's father, Stephen, was so grief-stricken that he literally drank himself to death.
Yeah, he tried to kill himself in any other way besides, like, blowing out his brains.
Right.
We touched on it a little bit. Shanda was a daddy's girl.
Huge
they were thick
daddy's girl.
They were thick as thieves. And I understand that. I was that way with my dad. Like, my dad was my best friend. And so I can understand that. You have your daughter that was, not only was she taken too soon, but in the vile way.
Right.
I can understand it. If that was one of my kids that happened to,
that she was
I would
lured,
be a fucking mess.
That she was lured out of your house under your watch and then murdered because she was staying at Dad's house. Now remember, her mom and dad were divorced, so she was staying at Dad's house, because the guilt of like not hearing your kid leave or not knowing that they weren't in the house, which I would never put that on anybody, but that's how I would feel. Like if something happened to my kid and I didn't hear them, like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, well, you lose a child anyways, you're gonna be fucked up. We've talked about it numerous times.
Oh yeah.
Throughout our podcast. But especially in that kind of way, if somebody did that to one of my kids, I would totally probably drink myself to the grave as well. Because how do you fucking cope with that?
Yeah.
Because, you had to go through all the trial each time, so you had to constantly hear over and over again. You had to watch those words fall out of those little fucking bitches' mouths each time they're like, and then I beat her with a tire iron until a chunk of her skull came off. And so he ended up dying in 2005. He was only 53.
Yeah.
Of like liver failure, I think.
So in 2012, Shanda Scher's mom, Jackie, made contact with Melinda Loveless for the first time since the trials. And it was kind of indirectly. Jackie had donated a dog to Loveless to train for the Indiana Canine Assistance Program, which they use those for people with disabilities, so service dogs. And part of Melinda's repentance, I guess you could say, was she started doing these service dogs, and it was like dedicated to Shanda Scher.
And then she realized that the person behind it is Melinda. And
the fucking murderer of my daughter.
Oh.
And so...
She got some shit for that, though.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people were really, confused by her decisions.
And I think that's because a lot of people that aren't even close, like me, I still fucking hate Melinda Loveless. I don't give a fuck how good she is. I don't care if she can pet a dog and train it properly. I'm still like, ugh, fuck her. So I think a lot of people felt that way, and they're like, how could you be the mom?
Right.
And allow this?
Right.
But you're not in her shoes. You don't know. You can't carry that kind of...
You know what? And maybe that's her way of letting go of that anger, because carrying around that kind of grief and that kind of anger for that long is like poison. You're poisoning yourself.
It is. And, she even said in the interview where they kind of talk about it, she said, this would be something that my daughter would want me to do.
Right. And I think at least, like in Melinda's defense, at least she's doing something that like gives back to the community. Even though she's a fucked up little monster, at least she's doing something
positive.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Something positive out of her situation. And I think the other thing was, Jackie, Shanda's mom, had actually said that one of the ways that she felt like she was able to start like forgiving was through these dogs, and also through the fact that Melinda and Lori like stayed in prison.
Exactly.
And didn't try to like get out early. Lori didn't even try to appeal her sentencing.
Yeah, I think, wasn't she the one that had also said like she knew that she was destined to do something and spend her life in prison?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
At least you're honest.
Okay.
So I think that's another reason. She's like Charles Manson. She's like, fuck it, I love prison. I want to stay here forever.
Right.
Which, fine.
All right, dude. Fucking
go.
All right.
Go.
You stay.
Be one with the prison.
But neither one of the girls tried to get early release. Exactly. And so Jackie was actually talking about that during the Dr. Phil episode, and was like, that's at least they stayed in prison for their full sentence.
And to like combat all the people that were like, what the fuck are you doing? She basically was like, this is my choice. And if something good can come out of something bad,
why not?
Yeah, because you can't, if you can't turn something good out of it, like nothing. Okay?
'Tis the season for sweaty legs, and it was stuck to the chair, and I went to move it, and it had been there, like the meaty part of my thigh had been stuck there for a minute.
Yeah, I got
so
you.
I'm sorry. That face
fine.
I just made.
I was like, oh, are you okay? What happened?
What do?
But anyway, she said that nothing would ever get better. And we've talked about how Jackie, and it's actually like, wasn't it Shanda's, it was a little sister or
bigger sister.
Bigger sister.
Big sister.
Go to that Dr. Phil show, and you can find different clips of it on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
and different things like that. And that's where they talk about the murder. They actually talk like face to face
with Hope.
And they're like, why are you smiling? Why are you doing this? Like the bigger sister is way more like
aggressive, and
you could tell like Give that bitch 5 minutes alone.
Put him in the green room, lock the door, because...
Turn off the cameras.
Oh, yeah, right.
Shit's going to get real.
Fucking televise that shit. Pay-per-view.
Let's see it.
Let me say it.
I'll be doing fucking cheerleading moves in the back.
Go,
give me an
get it.
M. Give me a U. Give me a R.
D-E-R. Murder! Woo! Goes wild.
Yeah, that would be me. I'd be like, yeah, kill that bitch.
Get her. Go get her. Yeah. So anyway, they actually had an opportunity to sit face to face and talk to Hope and get some questions answered, and Amanda Heaverin as well. So one of the things that they did ask Hope was, why were you smiling in your mugshot?
Yeah, and that's where she basically said, you know, like,
well, the cops were making jokes and trying to make me feel better, and so I laughed.
I doubt the cops were making jokes. I call bullshit.
Juno, I think you're probably lying.
I don't know of anybody that's taking mugshots and they're like, smile for the camera, let me tell you a funny joke. You look too young to be here, you silly little girl.
What were you thinking? Tisk.
Yeah, no, that happened never, in my opinion.
Never. In the history of things that never happened, that never happened the most.
Yeah, and she was all smiling just like Melinda was smiling.
Oh, yeah. All fucking teeth.
So I think just fucking crazy.
Like, Tony, obviously, she looks so, like, beat puppy, like somebody just took her fucking birthday away. And Lori was like stone fox.
You know that she was, like, secretly excited. She's like,
oh, I know.
Yes, I have lived for this fucking moment. I have trained.
She's fucking Deanna reigns supreme. God. But she just had like this stone cold killer face. And
she tries to apologize, but you can tell, like, especially the sister was not having any
it was
of
a weird, almost, it felt forced.
Oh,
like
very.
she was thinking of something really sad that she saw in a movie to like get some tears out.
Yeah, I don't think those were genuine.
No,
At
I don't
least
think so.
for Shanda.
No. I just, it was a very weird forced apology. And I think the thing that bothers me the most about that Dr. Phil episode was Amanda Heaverin. Everything about her just really upset me. The way that she kept like negating her part of...
And she was being very like narcissistic about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, they called me a fucking pedophile, or they did this, or they did that, and I got kicked off the... Like, it was like Amanda versus Shanda's family type of thing.
Right.
And I get it. I understand it. It would be kind of shitty to be called a pedophile when you're the same age, basically.
Right. There was only 2 years difference. So,
but you also have to take into consideration that family just had their fucking daughter murdered because they were with you. And you decided to fuck a crazy bitch before her. Like,
well, and the thing was, like, Amanda didn't want to take responsibility for, like, the letters. She didn't want to take responsibility for, like, not calling somebody after she was shown the trunk. She didn't want to take responsibility for, like, any part of her knowing the threats that Melinda kept, like, passing down. She was like, oh, I didn't think it was that serious. I told my dad, and he was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, and she's like, and I do feel bad. I mean, I didn't get to say goodbye to her.
Just
and you can tell, like, the mother and the daughter weren't face-to-face with Amanda. They were, like, in the back room watching, and you can see, like, more than once them both, like, shaking their head. They're like, this fucking cunt.
The one
this
time...
is bullshit.
And, like, through the entire thing, she keeps chewing on her lip, which is, like, a nervous anxiety thing, and I'm like... You knew you were doing something wrong.
Exactly. And, you know, we've talked on it numerous times where Jackie would say that she was like a pedophile or child molester and that she was the one preying on Shanda.
Right.
And Amanda comes back and she's like, no, Shanda was coming on to me. Like, it was
like, she said that she, like, pushed her into the bathroom and, like, started groping her or kissing her or whatever. And maybe she did, but maybe she just had those misplaced feelings. Yeah. Because later she came back and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. But I do think it was a touch unfair. I think it's incredibly unfair, honestly, to call somebody a sexual predator and a child molester when they're literally the same peer like age. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe
And I understand that you're hurt.
and you're angry. And that's kind of what I think it is like a misplaced anger for the entire thing. But when she's like, Jackie said, I believe Amanda should have been charged and sentenced to some kind of something.
Which also like gets me going, and I'm like, okay, I understand you thinking that Amanda should also be in jail, even though there's nothing that they really have on Amanda. Like,
I think,
and this was before a lot of things were put into place.
right. The one thing, I can't remember what exactly it's called, but it's that, like, that Good Samaritan thing where, like, she was shown something that obviously looked a little crimey and didn't do anything until she was then, like, notified by the police and was being interrogated because they thought maybe she had something to do with it.
Right. But the Good Samaritan law didn't come in until 1997. 1997 is when that crime happened, and I don't think it came into effect until, like, 1999.
And this took place in 1992.
So,
right. So,
which I understand, but what's weird to me is she's still so fucking mad and wanting to place blame on Amanda, which I get that. Your daughter was very brutally fucking murdered.
Right.
I support you in that, but in the same breath, she's like, I still don't, I want Melinda to serve her thing, but I see a difference in her. So she's almost like, I know that she's not giving her a pass, but it kind of feels like she's giving her a little bit of a pass. And I'm like,
right. Well, and maybe she
triggers. I can't.
Fucking Whitaker. Oh. But maybe she feels that way because Melinda has actually served time and she's actually spent.
She feels like it's been justified a little bit where she feels
Amanda's actually gone on, lived her life, done things, and then,
Which I still think Amanda's a piece of shit too because she doesn't.
Well, and they, I think Jackie and her other daughter, her name is Paige Shearer, they go on to blame Amanda for kind of everything leading up to her murder because if it wasn't for you and she wasn't with you, none of this would have happened. And if you'd have stopped talking to her when we told you to, because they actually, the parents of Shanda went to Amanda's dad at one point in time and was like, please keep her away from our daughter. We don't think it's a healthy relationship for either one of them.
Right.
And he just was like, oh.
Well, and then the worst thing that you can ever tell to a teenager is, I don't want you to have contact with this person anymore. Because then they're going to be like, oh.
Well.
In that case, I know better. So I'll just now, instead of being open about it, I'll just go behind your back, bitch.
You know what? And I couldn't tell you how many times my mom was like, that's a bad influence.
I can't tell you how many times I was told I shouldn't do something, and then I intentionally did it.
Disobeyed and, like, went running down the street, fucking
like, you don't know me.
Flying my freak flag. Tell you what.
Oh, you said that I'm supposed to be home at midnight? Well, I'll just slip you an extra Ambien, and then I'll come home at 2.
TikTok, bitch.
And then the next morning, you'll be like, dude, what time did you come home? I came home at midnight. I woke you up and told you.
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Shit.
So you've got Hope Rippey.
Tony Lawrence.
Lori Tackett.
And Melinda Lovelace. Loveless in Indiana.
Yo, man. God, I guess. So this is
her last name fit her.
It really did.
Yep. They took Shanda. They tortured her. They stabbed her. They sodomized her. They fucking beat her.
I beat her, strangled her, burned her alive. I don't know.
And then went to McDonald's like it was no big deal.
I just don't know how, like, close to death she was when they burned her. I hope like she was drawing her final breaths.
I do too.
So that I don't know.
But that's a lot of...
I know.
That's a worse way to go.
I know. Mm-hmm. I just don't even know how she was still, like, breathing and okay after being stabbed so many times.
Yeah. And what I'm not okay with the most is that these were teenagers that did this.
The Teenage Lesbian Hit Squad.
Oh my goodness.
Squad.
But yes, that's the end of that bullshit. So let's try to lighten it up with some shout outs because we have made so many friends. That's one thing that I love about this podcast.
We got friends.
We got friends in high places because we're kind of in that low place. We're the
Neil.
gunners. First one is
I believe it's Pavo and Neil,
Yes.
and That's No Moon. It's a podcast.
That's No Moon. It's a podcast.
That's no moon. But these guys gave us a really super awesome shout out on one of their YouTube videos. And
great.
I got a really awesome giggle out of it because the face that you kept making while trying to describe the butt touch game made my
And Neil was like, the fuck you talking about?
the hell? It genuinely warmed up my dark little heart.
It did. And they do like Star Wars news and different things like that, which I obviously...
I know, as you're decked out from head to toe in your Star Wars shit.
Yeah.
And I've got Han Solo encapsulated in carbonite as my phone case.
Yeah, so, we were like, oh, Star Wars podcast? Fucking yes, bitch!
Subscribed.
And they have sweet accents. So
It is fun to listen to.
That makes everything better. I wish I had like a badass accent.
I wonder if people think that about us or if they're like, fucking mushmouth Americans.
Probably.
Shut up.
They seem like their family tree is a stump.
And also, Just Another Murder podcast
Oh, those three.
is a good one to check out as well.
They're funny. Oh, they're great. You're gonna want to go and check them out. 3 crazy gals getting together. It's like us. I appreciate anybody that I'm like, I can relate. That sounds like Angel and I. And that's what they are.
The last one that we wanted to give a little shout out to was the Functioning Drunks.
Which did our
little
intro thing for today.
And that's AJ, Dennis, and sometimes Tom and John. And you guys really, if you like hilarious foul mouthery,
Yeah.
just touching on
Anything and everything.
you've really got to check these guys out.
It's always good when you get a bunch of drunk people together and just put a microphone in the middle and see what happens. Like when I listen to them, I feel like I'm there. And I do this thing when I'm listening to somebody, and if I like get along or I'm really into it, I comment like they're gonna fucking hear me. I'm like, oh yeah, or blah 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 blah. Like, and I make little comments and I laugh to myself as I'm like flipping fucking pancakes. I'm like,
I've totally done that, dude. Totally.
And today I was listening to them while I was trying to work out before you came here. And of course my workout today was like ab stuff, so I'm like trying to crunch and I hear this like fucking, I'm gonna drink you fucking pretty motherfucker. And I'm like, oh my God. And I start laughing.
I can't do crunches when I'm sitting up. Oh, sitting up? Can't. Oh, honey.
Oh, delete a kiss.
I'm pretty sure that I just need a nap.
Yeah, it's okay. And if you go to our Facebook, our Color Me Dead group, our actual group one that's for listeners and everything like that. The other day I went through and I made a huge list of a bunch of podcasts to listen to while you wait, because we have made so many friends. My list of podcasts I have in my queue is fucking outrageous, because we've been in this one group and we have found a lot of really cool podcasts, a lot of really cool friends. So we'll be sure to share that with everybody else. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Color Me Dead Pod, and we're on Instagram as
Color Me Dead Podcast. You can find us on Facebook as well, Color Me Dead Podcast, and then Color Me Dead Podcast Group.
Yes.
Which she was just talking about.
Yeah, the Color Me Dead Podcast is basically where we will post things about upcoming episodes, different things like that. And then the group is kind of where everybody else that gets along and also loves true crime can sit and share stories and bullshit. And
share podcasts with each other, share stories with each other. It's kind of cool.
Exactly. And then we also have our email at colormedeadpodcast@gmail.com. Email us. We love having little pen pals.
We do.
I don't care what you want to talk about.
But you can also subscribe.
Yes.
On iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Overcast. So many applications, dude. Google Play. You can pretty much find us everywhere. So always, subscribe, rate, review.
Yes. If you have iTunes and you can leave us a review, that is awesome. That does so much for us on
so many levels, because
it
makes
gets
us
more people to come and listen to us.
New and noteworthy. And the newer and more noteworthy we are, and the more listeners we have, the more likely we can do this full time. But don't sneak out of your house and take rides with girls you don't know.
Yeah, stay out of chalk lines.
And stay out of chalk lines. Bye.
Ashes, we are